The initial idea for this symposium came last summer when Rotary International and local Rotarians and Rotary clubs, in response to the murder of George Floyd and the violent deaths of other African Americans, issued a variety of statements and resolutions decrying racism. Nearly every Rotarian with whom I spoke over the summer talked eagerly of moving beyond words and wanting to take meaningful action in support of change. That's when it became clear that we needed a forum for interested, motivated, curious, and committed Rotarians to come together, to learn, to listen, to plan, to advocate, and to consider what those next steps might be. I convened a District 5030 Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force back in August, and we began planning for today. Our symposium consists of 4 components. We'll have an opening presentation and conversation with Rotarian Michael Rousell. Then we have a series of 6 breakout sessions where you will indicate your preferred topic and we will try to assign you accordingly. Then we'll hear a snappy report out from each breakout session and close with an inspiration by Dr. Bowtie Todd Jenkins. There will be 2 10-minute stretch breaks, so please stay logged into your device, but feel free to go refill your coffee or let the dog out. Just be sure to come back at 10 o'clock when the breakout sessions resume. And if you haven't already, please download the digital program, which there'll be a link to it up in the chat. And that's where you'll find bios for all of our speakers. You'll see the breakout session descriptions, and there'll be multiple pages of resources associated with those breakout sessions. And now I'd like to introduce Michael Rousell. Michael hails from New Orleans. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in accounting from Tabor College in Kansas. At Tabor, he earned a spot on the basketball team. He also became an All-American in the triple jump in track and field. Michael, a CPA, has been in public accounting for over 10 years, beginning his professional career at a firm in Garden City, Kansas. Mike made his way back to Central Texas, where he joined his current firm in 2017. That's the same year he joined Rotary. This year, Michael proudly serves as the Sergeant at Arms for his club, the Temple Rotary South Club. He is actively involved within the community and has many hobbies, including sports, hunting, fishing, but his most passionate hobby, he told me, is being a dad. He lives on a 12-acre farm with his blended family, Sarah, and their 4 children. Michael addressed the district governors across the West Coast last summer. He spoke in a frank and authentic way about race, about racism, and about Rotary's role to fight it. I was delighted when Michael accepted my invitation to join us today. Michael will speak for about 30 minutes, and then he has agreed to take questions. So please post your questions in the chat and join me in welcoming Michael Rousell.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Thank everyone for being here today. I'm going to first start off with the caveat that I am not a professional speaker, so bear with me as I get through this. It's a lot different speaking to, your small Rotary club of about 20 people who you see every day. But it's been becoming a need for me to tell my story. It's been very therapeutic, to say to speak. I didn't realize I was holding on to so much trauma. And so sincerely, this is the most vulnerable that I've been. I'm overcome with emotions, having to relive certain moments in my life, more moments that I'm even going to share with you here today. It's really taking a toll on me. And so I have to, I've lost a lot of sleep trying to figure out how I can constructively get my message across, or if I even should speak at all. So with that being said, during this time, I respectfully ask you to listen. Listen without the intent to defend anything that I'm telling you. It's the reality, and the time for change is now. And there's no more excuses or justifications. So I'm an educated Black professional with a great career at a great firm. I've worked extremely hard to earn the respect of those who know me at work and also in my community. So by anyone's standards, I am successful. So how do the senseless killings of people, the civil discord that's surrounding race, and hearing those with the largest of platform downplay or flat out deny that racism or racial bias exists, they upset me. They sadden me, not only as an empathetic human, but also because there are needless and painful reminders of the indignities that I face daily. When I'm with people who know me, I'm a respected dad, colleague, board member, friend, volunteer, etc. But once outside of those isolated bubbles, I'm just an anonymous Black man subject to diminished respect and trust, and it's exhausting. And if it's exhausting for me, the successful Black man, how do you think it is for Black communities in general? You know, there's this misconception that racism is this redneck in a jacked up truck waving a Confederate flag, but it's much deeper than that. Racism is being laughed at by a group of white people and act sarcastically if you're the janitor when you tell someone you work at a public accounting firm. Racism is being told by white people that the officer is just doing their job. If you just do what they say, you'll be fine. Well, I've been pulled over 20 some odd times, always doing what I'm told. But am I fine? Being frisked and have your vehicle searched right in front of your house, begging for the four police officers for one 17-year-old to let you go inside and get a guardian. Coming inside feeling dehumanized, scared for your life, alone. I mean, would you be fine? Physically, yeah, sure, I'm okay. But am I fine? Racism is when you finally listen to what you've been taught and say no to a vehicle search, and you're forced to stand on side the road, humiliated while people watch your vehicle be searched by a dog, knowing even if you're innocent, you're presumed to be guilty by those looking on. Racism is my mom telling me she named me Michael because Jamal on the resume wouldn't land me a good job. Her telling me she wanted to spell it with a Y, but no, that might look bad also. So she compromised with the world and just nicknamed me Mike with a Y. Racism is, so I like to dance. A lot of people will know this about me that knows me personally, and I mean dance among all these spectrums. And I love country music. So sometimes I go to a country bar to dance. Well, I was dancing with my girlfriend at the time, and a guy walked by and said, "Give it up, nigger." And he whispered it real soft. He came back a second time. "Hey, give it up, nigger," a little bit louder, because mind you, I'm trying to ignore him. It's not my scene to cause a scene. The third time, "Hey, give it up, nigger. That is not your music." My girlfriend at the time, she turned around and said, "Hey, that's enough. You need to get out of here." Bar attendants to come with all this hoopla, and he's like, meet me outside. And I'm just standing back. And in my head, now I'm 6'2", in the best shape of my life at the time. In my head, I'm thinking, yeah, it would feel good to punch him right in his mouth and put him in his place. However, I'm in a small town. I had just started my career as an accountant. The last thing I need to do is be known as the thug in the bar. And so now I have to go through all these things on the spot in my head, thinking about all the consequences that come from me beating this guy up. I can beat him up, and the bartenders can be like, "Hey, this is why we don't let Black people in this bar. It just causes problems." I can beat him up, and a client can be in there. My boss can fire me. I have to think about all these things and put all my pride aside and just take it. But I do, for the greater good, and I have been for the greater good. I continue to be reminded that racism is alive and well, with no Black child exempt from the hate or discrimination. Age, home life, parent involvement, light skin, dark skin, tone, none of that matters. The world around us has taught me that racism is not always loud, it is not always clear, but it's always dangerous and it's always damaging. Racism is not being able to, is not being able to meet your son's first grade teacher and meet the teacher night because the teacher was so visibly disgusted by my presence. She couldn't even be bothered to make eye contact with me. I waited and waited, only to realize no matter where I stood or what I said, my son's new teacher was not interested in speaking to me. Racism is having to write a letter to the counselor, vice principal, and superintendent of Belton ISD to get my 6-year-old son classrooms changed in the middle of a year because he was getting treated so poorly based off the color of his skin. Now, I know the first thing that you might ask is, well, how do you know? I mean, which is another reason racism thrives, right? I asked to have my son moved because of the effect she was having on my child. I asked for my son to be moved due to the hateful things said to him by someone that I entrusted his care to. My son could not understand why his teacher ignored his raised hand continuously, or told him he was a bad kid, or would come home, and he would come home still each day with a different idea on how he can make this teacher like him. Like, it was around Christmas time. He said, "Dad, she loves drinking tea in the morning. Could we get her a new teacup? Oh man, she would love that." My son loves to learn, and he loves going to school, and he absolutely loves pleasing people. So I would never stand by and watch someone steal the shine from his smile and make him believe he wasn't worthy. One of the reasons I say racism thrives is because of the shame a Black parent is made to feel when questioning why their child is being treated differently. Involved, dedicated parents should not fear retaliation when questioning the care and education of their children. Racism thrives because I didn't want to mention this being about race. Honestly, I didn't want to believe it. But it also thrives because it's not always said or made clear why hate is being spewed towards a person. You know, and being a Black person talking to an all-white administration in an all-white community, a majority, white community, the last thing you want to do is mention race, because any credibility you may have had at the time could quickly go out of the window. Anyways, I want to end this quick story by letting you all know that when in the meeting to have my son moved, the principal, she flat out asked me, "Do you feel like this is racially charged?" Of course, I painfully admitted I think so, due to the countless observations in class and the stories my son brings home involving white students, and not the detailed examples. Well, she looked at that counselor and she solemnly said, "Yeah, this isn't the first time." So that is how I know. There's a, a, a very prevalent issue here, and I want to acknowledge it now. White privilege. I know, it's frowning for anyone, especially me as a Black man, to speak of this or mention its existence. But white privilege, much like racism, isn't always tangible. And just like racism, the burden of proof has been put on Black people, and it's frustrating. White people, white privilege isn't me as a Black person saying you didn't work hard for what you have, or you didn't pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's simply acknowledging the fact that your skin color, your name, or any other stereotype was not a barrier to your success or source of struggle. Now, after talking and venting with my wife and etc., I don't know if this is a scientific term or not, but if you see it on Wikipedia, just know that Dr. Rousell, I'm not a doctor, just know that I came up with it. I call it white avoidance. White avoidance is being asked, what did you do to make them want to search your car? So I kept my gym bag in the trunk just to ease everyone's fear of me. White avoidance is being told it's because of the way I dressed or because I have dreads. So guess what? I saved up what I could and I bought new clothes and I cut my hair. White avoidance is being told it's because I live off of welfare or live in a certain part of town. So guess what? I went to college and I got a respected job. White avoidance is not acknowledging the fact that I had to work 4 times harder than my white peers just to be at par level. And after doing all that I could do to conform, to adjust, I still struggle with being accepted as a professional when I'm outside of my work confines or not wearing a $500 suit. White avoidance is the reason white privilege continues to thrive. And and with all my personal experiences and this stigma stacked against me, I've never met a white person and thought, well, here comes another racist. Everyone I meet has a clean slate. I never talk to someone with a thought process, this person is scary. I never avoid a person because of an interaction I had with a different person. I've never been disrespectful or short to police officers, questioning why they pulled me over or leading with it's because I'm Black. I don't group people together based off of someone else's narrative or characteristics of those who have previously wronged me. And with all I've been through, I still manage to give each person I encounter a smile and a chance. All people are asking for, all Black people are asking for, all I am asking for is a clean slate and a fair chance. A chance to be heard and seen for who I am on the inside. Hear my story before you determine if I am a bad person or if I am good. And after just just a short time, you will find that a lot of people pride themselves on being the latter. There are things that won't go viral or be viewed as extreme enough to cause an uproar. Landon, he won't get a hashtag for feeling less than. I won't get a hashtag for being humiliated. Life won't always be lost, physically anyway. However, these blatant inequalities are what all the fuss is about. Sam Cooke sung a song, "A Change Gonna Come." That was 50 some odd years ago. Why has a song about racial discrimination lasted the test of time for so long? Why are we here today begging for something as simple as to be treated as equals, to be perceived as equals, to be not to not be up against a stereotype? There are some that think that this is about politics. There are some that think that this is about just one bad cop. There's some that think that this is about a flag or a group of people looking for a handout. That can't be further from the truth. I've worked for everything that I have, and I love with everything that I have. So hear me, your friend, your fellow Rotarian. Let's turn off the news, leave Fox and CNN alone for a day. Let's not get our perspectives from sources known for their bias. Let's walk into the communities that we don't understand. Let's talk to our colleagues, people we break bread with, people we call brother and sisters. Hear their stories. You guys have got to understand me and hear me clearly. I am not a politician. I am a dad. And I never thought happy-go-lucky Mike would much rather get a laugh out of people than talk about something so serious or sensitive, and especially about my personal experiences so openly. I was okay with bottling up all those emotions until my son, honestly. We're in a time where people have been motivated and recharged just to be nasty in the name of whatever they believe. Where you can go across the street and talk to your neighbor and tell them, quit acting like Black people, be more white. But on the other side, we have people like you, people on this call on a Saturday afternoon, just as motivated, just as recharged to make a positive difference. And those are the people that I'm talking to. The glaring question that all my friends have is, what can I do to help? Everyone here today in some form or fashion has influence, has a platform to be heard. And I'm asking you to use that influence to give Black lives a voice. Now, I know Black lives, it triggers some people. And I got to be honest with you, I don't even know the names, the names that are being, I think it's Marxist. I don't know. But I've heard it all the time. And when you hear someone say Black lives, it has this negative connotation with it, as if I work for a corporation. When you hear Black Lives Matter, you hear a corporation. But when we say Black Lives Matter, it is just a simplification of the message of hope, and the hope that someday everyone will understand that Black Lives Matter also. Okay, it's a lot of history and it's just a simple saying that has been ignored from the source. I am a Black person. I am a Black man. I am a Black life. My son is a Black life. And all I'm asking people when I say Black Lives Matter, or when someone says it, is simply that: Black Lives Matter. You know, and I try to refrain from even talking about it, but I want to make that clear to people who their first thought is, but that is a corporation led by the, I don't know. You just take a step back and listen to the person that you're talking to. You know, put yourself in their shoes. If you have 3 friends willing to listen and respect your thoughts, you are more valuable than you know. Help us combat those that are insistent that things are good the way that they are. Things are not okay and change is needed. Things may be okay for you or for those around you, but I can assure you things are not good for everyone. Help by holding people accountable for their actions. Help right be right, no matter if you're on the left or the right. Help Black kids not only have a future, but be able to believe that they're capable of great things, no different than the child standing next to them. I've worked in all types of organizations. The tone at the top is the key to how that organization is ran. Looking at America as one big giant corporation, it's those empowers jobs to make sure inclusion and equality is the only acceptable standard, to set the tone at the top. It's not our job to change all of America. I get that. But it is our responsibility to play our part, affect those that are around you, build up and encourage your community. It starts individually, it starts with you. It starts with you teaching your kids and your grandkids to accept others for their differences, even if they don't understand. I don't know where each of you are in your journey, but I challenge you to listen and learn with an open heart, with an open mind. Give your input. This uncomfortable communication is the only way forward. Now, I've come across a lot of eye-opening sources that I urge you to view and share. One of them being James Elliott's The Blue-Eye, Brown-Eye Experiment, the book White Like Me by Tim Wise, and I have a whole list. And what I'll do is I'll have Kathy or Henry distribute that list post this meeting. But if you do nothing else, I encourage you to reach out to some of your Black friends. Check in on them. Don't assume that they're okay or that they know that you are supportive. Ask your friends how they're feeling, what they think. Express your interest in hearing about their personal experiences. Show them you care, even if they seem fine. Initiate that line of communication. I learned I have some people support even if they didn't explicitly say it at first. And to me personally, hearing those close to me say that they care or empathetic has been huge. I want you to give your friends the opportunity to express themselves without the feeling that they're going to cause some kind of unrest or lose some of the people they hold dearest. Now, the other glaring question I've been getting is, what can Rotary do? And I've had some time to reflect on this. From conversations I've had, and we can all agree that there's a need for Rotary clubs to reflect their communities. So how do we encourage those in communities to join Rotary? I think we first start off by creating a common goal. What can Rotary add to their priority list that will capture a more diverse audience in their local community? For me, I'm sorry, the biggest dilemma is, how do I get the different communities in the same room? How do we end the segregation that is still so prevalent? I mean, our public facilities, parks, even our churches. Let's be honest. A lot of us serve the same God and we still can't find a way to worship together. I feel like everything will just work itself out if we can all just gather together and realize we're on the same page. To me, Rotary is one of the best ways to bridge this gap. All of us together working towards a common goal of improving our communities. The same way we came together to try to eradicate polio, let's come together and try to eradicate racism. What I challenge our Rotary clubs to do is to constantly expand the diversity of our clubs, which a lot of people are working on right now. Reach out to people around you at work, at your church, at your children's school. Actively recruit those who may not even have any idea what our Rotary family is about. With recent events, there's been a surge of people wanting to do good, want to make a difference. Don't let those people search for an outlet. Don't let that fire that's been sparked in so many fade out. Be the force that attracts them and bring their drive and passion to our club. As the Sergeant of Arms in our Temple Rotary South Club, I have a certain authority. I make the socials and I bring people together. And one of my, Mike Bowley, the previous sergeant, he said, it doesn't matter. People are going to enjoy themselves regardless. Well, I'm going to put that to the test because I feel like, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet, but I envision Rotary clubs having at least one of their social events directly supporting or jointly hosted at an event that is primarily put on by our Black or Hispanic community. We need to be seen and heard in places and events outside of our normal. We need to be sure our entire community knows what Rotary is, what we stand for, and that we're here to support. And the best way to create this buzz about Rotary is show our passion for the community, regardless of color. Is to get out and get involved and get our hands dirty. We're a service above self organization. Service above self. That 4-way test, when you say it, it should mean something different to you during this time. For me, it does. It has a whole different weight than when I was saying it just 6 months ago. Let's eliminate any misconceptions that Rotary, to join Rotary, you have to know people, that you have to have a certain career, or that you have to look a certain way. I mean, let's be honest. I told someone I was in Rotary, it was like, the old white guys? I said, yeah, I mean, there's some women too, would you believe it? There's a huge relationship side in this. And as leaders of our community, it's our job to make that connection, get out of our comfort zone. I'm being frank with you when I say this. Black people have learned to be comfortable in a white world. This isn't me taking away from women's struggles or any other marginalized group. I'm simply just talking from the ground. This is my ground experience. And recently I heard someone say, you have to make space for others. That was powerful to me because you have to make space for others. We sometimes get so wrapped up in ourselves that we can only accept those that are exactly like us. And I'm asking you the courage to get out into your community, to make these connections with people you may assume you are not like you. You may be surprised at the relationships you can build. We should not be afraid to speak up. We should not allow this fear surrounding racial dialogue to continue. As I continue to speak about my personal experiences to the people close to me, it's made me think. It's the most effective and the most powerful and the most impactful when it's given to those that know me, people from my own community, someone that sits next to me at work or I see in a grocery store. So I would love to see a mic from every community come forward and share their story. My story is not unique. I mean, my story is more common than most people would like to admit. And to tell my story was terrifying, but the response was worth it. I feel heard. I feel like I'm making a difference. I feel like people do care. I encourage everyone to keep this conversation going. I encourage anyone with a story to speak up. You'll be surprised the impact and influence you may have. As Rotary evolves, let us say with joy in our hearts, we were part of that evolution. Let us support the progress in our great nation. Let Rotary set the tone at the top. If you take anything from my talk here today, I hope you remember that together we can help in a major way. It's not, it's no longer good enough to simply be not racist. We need to do more. We need to be actively anti-racist. Don't turn your head the other way. Do fight for accountability. Help us get to the point where if a teacher is repeatedly written up for racial discrimination, that we don't get mad at the parents for bringing the bias to light, but instead at the teacher for hurting a child, for hurting our future. Now, I saw there was another CPA in the group early on. I think Sarah was her name. Maybe she can relate to this. So the way my brain works, you're not going to find these statistics anywhere else. They're just how my numerical brain works. But this is my perception of the world right now. There's 5% of people all the way to the left, and they're loud. I mean, they're yelling, and this is what media is sprouting at us. And then there's 5% of people all the way to the right, and I mean, they're loud. This is what media, and these are the two options that media and the majority of what we hear and see, these are the options that we think that we have. But I found out by talking to people, actually communicating with people. It's 90% of us that are like-minded people that are in the middle, who just know right from right, know wrong from wrong, and want to see the world that's thriving, want everyone to have a fair chance at making it as high as they want to go. However, us 90%, we've been these peacekeepers, right? We just don't say anything. It is now time, a better time than ever, for us 90% to no longer be peacekeepers, to be peacemakers. We need to tell this 10%, this 5% here, and this 5% here to shut up. This is how we're going to run our world, and this is the America that we're going to live in. Okay, guys. Any questions?
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you sharing, and I hope everyone took to heart what you've shared with us this morning. I'm going to go to the chat and read out some of the questions. And the first one is, how have you stayed so strong and have such amazing communication skills? So how have you stayed strong?
So two things. I'll start off by the lighthearted part of this, how I get communication skills. And it brings me to a very important topic that I would like to discuss, is the allyship. I came straight from New Orleans, and I was, fresh off the boat in New Orleans, to where people couldn't understand me. And it was someone that took the time to say, hey, say ask instead of ask. I never knew I was doing anything wrong, because that's just how the way I talk. And so it took a lot of practice and patience for me to understand that I needed to talk and communicate better if I want to make it, and professionally. And so that's what I did. And I remember Carol Jean, I would go with a notepad, and she would say, I say, hey, can I ask you a question? Ask. Can I ask you? And then slowly. And so now every time I talk to someone and say, can I ask you a question? I just practiced. But she took the time to help me get to a point where she could put me in front of clients, and the clients wouldn't look at me a certain way. She took the time to do that. And she also took the time to give me my first job. After 100 rejections, I counted them, applications, interviews, so many rejections. Everyone, their excuse was, oh, we need somebody with a little bit more experience. Well, she sat me down. She said, I have 4 people interviewing for this job. One has a master's degree. One has 2 years of experience. One has 4 years of experience and a master's degree. And then there's you, Mike. She says, but I want to offer you the job. And I'm sitting back in my seat. Mind you, I have dreads down to here at this point. So I'm like, oh my goodness. Why? Why? And she said, I'm gonna tell you. It's because I see a lot of you, as far as your drive, your work ethic, in that I was when I was a woman coming into this field. And she said, you are clean. She said, you are a clean slate, which I can mold you into what I want you to be as an accountant. She said, on one condition though, I will give you the job. 30,000 seems like, I know it sounds like a little to everyone else, but 30,000 going from zero and where I come from to 30,000, I'm taking it. She said, one condition. We are in a conservative profession, and how do you feel about cutting your hair? That night, I went home and I skinned my head. This is in small rural Kansas. That's not where I want to start my career, but I want to make it more than I wanted hair. I want to make it more than I wanted to be close to my family. I just wanted to make it. I wanted to be successful. And so sacrifice I had to make. And so being strong has been literally my life's, I've had a lot of practice at it. I grew up in in a house with 13 people. My mom was a single mother. We moved around a lot. I don't know my father. I mean, I just had to always be strong, and I found joy in so many things. And I used to say when I was younger, it's like, you got to smile first, then find something to smile. I mean, then find something that goes along with the smile. You share a smile with someone, and it just changes your whole attitude. And so I'm a very optimistic person, and I feel like I take the bad and I turn it to good, and I take the good and I turn it to good. It's just how I've been brought up. So.
Great, Mike. Thank you. The next question, and there are more coming in the chat. What efforts to make changes have you seen that are really working?
The biggest one that I've seen is we have something that's called Early Act First Night. And that's when, it's always, if you start with the youth and you give these kids this hope factor, it holds a lot of weight, changing someone's mind, at a certain point in life. It's a little bit more difficult, right? But if you can get into a kid's a mind and help them understand that the inclusion side of things and that you are worthy, it's been impactful. And so we have this deal, Early Act First Night, in our Rotary Club that we go to the high schools, and it's been so powerful to see those kids. I mean, families come up, they take a lunch break off, and that kid is surprised because their mom or dad may not have ever been to the school, but they come to see them get this award and get knighted by these real knights. And so that's been really impactful, I feel like. And as we go along, it's been a lot of things thrown at the wall, and we're still trying to figure out how Rotary can make sure they use their network. But a lot of people, the other thing is reaching out to organizations that are already predominantly Black organizations, even though they're predominantly Black, since, like, in our area, I think it's 16% Black people, which means 76% is white, and then the other percent is Hispanic or Indian. What happens is when that 70%, that the majority comes to the minority and says, hey, we want to help, the minority cannot change the 76%. But if you get some of that 76% over to the minority side and have them just be empathetic and understand and want to help, that is when the needle is going to move. That is when we're going to see real change in policies and hiring processes and other things like that.
Great. You made a comment that we are peace keepers, but we should be peacemakers. Can you say more about that?
Yes. So I feel like the peacekeepers is we live in our bubble, and even I am guilty of this, and that's why I say us. I try to change my family tree. I've been working hard, to teach my kids right from wrong, and etc. But I sometimes accept people that I surround myself with, their either backhanded comments or their divisive statements and etc. And the reason I do that is because I just want to keep the peace. Why? And it wasn't until recently where I'm at a golf tournament and I can tell someone or ask someone to trigger this conversation is, hey, why do you feel that way? Why do you feel so strongly about that? And after talking with them, you'll get them passionate and fired up. And the key to this communication side of things is, guys, you have to not fight emotion with emotion. If emotion is fighting emotion, all you're going to do is leave the room to emotional people. Somebody has to just take a step back, take a deep breath, and take a logical approach to things and say, okay, when I was talking to this person, they were fired up, this and that, and this person is this person is this. And I asked them, I said, I didn't ask you why this person was bad. I asked you why you feel like all of these things are good. And they paused for a second. Well, I'm just old fashioned. Yeah, man. I think that's part of the problem. You being old fashioned. I'm like, being a traditionalist, you can keep some of your values and your morals. I'm not asking you to relinquish your culture, but I'm asking you to make space for other cultures. No one's taken away from your culture by including their culture. And so the peacemakers of us, and I know a lot of us are peacekeepers on this call, you have got to be able to support that parent that says, hey, I just think my child is being treated differently. You have to be able to support that speaker or that person in your club, clearly the Lone Ranger in your club, or the small, percentage in your club, and ask them, what do you feel like we should do? So I just, it's going to be a confrontation type atmosphere, but if you control the narrative, I think you guys are going to be capable of making real change and helping people understand where you stand as far as how you view the world and how you feel like the world should be.
Thank you. A follow-up question on Black Lives Matter, so often considered too political. Any more thoughts on how we can bring this up in our clubs and depoliticize it?
Yeah. So again, if you walk up to any Black person, I mean, any of them, and I don't wear a shirt, I don't buy the merchandise, there's no financial benefit from me saying Black Lives. They're not sending me a black check. I want you guys to understand that. I don't have any connection with the organization. There's a difference between an organization and a statement. And again, I think the statement is what I want you to focus on when you hear from the horse's mouth. I'm not saying Fox News. I'm not saying CNN. I'm saying from the horse's mouth. And so in order to depoliticize that, is you got to talk to the source. You got to get your water from the fountain and ask them, does Black Lives Matter to you? But it's an organization, and they're gonna explain to you, like, it's not an organization to me. I am not an organization. I am not a corporation. And so talking to people that you actually know, and this is going to be an individual thing. If you talk to people that you actually know, you'll get a better sense of what Black Lives Matter to people and what they mean when they say that. I mean, because they may be saying it to you in the sense that it's a triumph, like the first Black judge in your area, and somebody yells Black Lives Matter. Would you feel like that is an attack on some institution of yours, or do you feel like them is saying, like, God, yes, people are valuing this Black life? So, and I want to mention this. We all have our inherent biases, right? No matter what it is. For example, if I see a elderly gentleman trying to pick up groceries, I'm going to run and say, hey, can I help you? Because in my head, I'm thinking, he shouldn't be lifting that. But then there's also inherent biases, like if a Black person applies for a job, you're thinking, man, my clients aren't going to like this. Those two, one is detrimental and one is helpful, right? One is you're coming from a place of a helpful side of things, and one is somebody's future, and then that person's future, their kid's future, okay, and then their kid's future. Do you see how that the history of that boils down to where we're at now, to where I have to work 4 or 5 times harder to cover some ground? And that's where I'm at now in this space, is that I came into this world and it was pretty racist, but now it's like my kids are living in a world that's even, and I'm trying to have them isolated in this bubble. They're living in a time where it's feels like it's worse than ever. So, I mean, worse than when I came in. So, I want to take the time to reflect and talk to our friends, people that we know, and the people in the community that are respected.
Thank you. And one last question. It came in privately, but I think it was a topic you mentioned toward the end that might be of interest of all of us, and that's speaking more about allyship
Mhm. So,
and how to
um,
be constructive as an ally. And
yeah. So what I challenge everyone in this room to do is find one minority person, get to know them, build this relationship, and help them become successful. That's You got to understand what that means. It could be a child, it could be a teenager, it can be a middle-aged man, it can be a 50-year-old trying to start his new lawnmower business. Help them become successful. Each pivotal time in my life, the Mike that you see here today, I got to be honest with you, it wasn't because Black people helped me. It was each time. I mean, every single time I can give you the timeline. It was a white person in a pivotal point in my life to help me get over the hump, get past this thing, get past a certain stage of my life, guide me, give me wisdom. My parents were not business people. Okay, so I didn't have any clue about the business world or where to start. I didn't have any network of internships. I didn't have any place to start. So I want you to, when I talked to my counselor at school and she saw that I was I got straight A's, and she said, you can really be an accountant. She doesn't even realize how powerful that was for me when she was like, I'm like, yeah, it's easy. The debits and credits is so logical. She was like, you have an accountant's brain. You don't have an accountant's personality, Mike, but you have an accountant's brain. And so I was like, oh yeah, I can make. Then I Google it. How much can an accountant make? Right? That's in college. You're like, how much can an accountant make? I said, well, yeah, I can do this. I think this is perfect. I had guidance, and my mom, she did her best to turn a boy into a man as best she could, but poverty begets poverty. Wealth begets wealth. It's just how the cycle has been, and to break that cycle, it's we need help. And so allyship is going to be the most crucial thing that anyone in this room can do.
thank you, Mike. Please join me in thanking Mike for sharing with us today.
Thank y'all for having me.